We're now in the summer kitchen, a separate outbuilding that would have been used for meal preparation year-round, as well as the building that would have been the center of a lot of the labor done at Graeme Park to maintain the lifestyle of the families that lived here throughout multiple generations. Now, because the Graemes were such a prominent family in Philadelphia, and because we tend to talk about Elizabeth's story as an independent woman, Graeme Park is a wonderful place to talk about how power shaped life in the 18th century. Of course, we talk about the laws of coverture, which governed property ownership and required that the moment Elizabeth got married to Henry Hugh Ferguson, the legal title to all of her land, assets, and estate passed to him, and then, based on his political allegiance, was seized by the Continental Army away from her possession. But it's also important to acknowledge the earlier and far greater land-based indignity at Graeme Park. Graeme Park sits on land that is native to the Lenni Lenape people, who are still an active and vibrant community in the region. This land was initially part of Penn's coercive walking purchase and was held by one prior colonial owner before Sir William Keith. Sir William Keith wrote extensively about his positive relationships with leaders of the Lenni Lenape community. However, it's important to reflect on his biases in making his recordings during his own lifetime, because particularly parceling out private estates in this way was one way to ensure that colonial-held land, once seized, was uninhabitable to Indigenous peoples in the region. We have limited records of enslaved people and indentured servants who labored here at Graeme Park, but we are able to highlight the story of Will. Will was an enslaved man who self-liberated by leaving Graeme Park in the company of an itinerant laborer who was working at Graeme Park for a briefer period of days or weeks. When Will escaped, we also know that Dr. Thomas Graeme purchased a newspaper advertisement seeking his recapture and return. This tells us, first, that Dr. Graeme valued Will's labor at Graeme Park enough to pay for an advertisement, actually multiple advertisements, seeking his return. Now, it also tells us some interesting information about Will's heritage. Dr. Graeme describes Will's complexion as well as his parents. We know that Will's parents were a formerly enslaved Native American woman who was held in slavery at Graeme Park before Dr. Graeme took possession of the property. And we know that his father was an enslaved man of African descent. Now, this information was very likely provided in order to make it more possible that Will would be captured and returned to Graeme Park. However, we don't have any record of whether or not this happened. And so, by reflecting on this portion of Will's story, we are able both to invite visitors to reflect on the way that slavery has shaped the history of Pennsylvania and the nation as a whole, and also uplift the bravery that Will and countless other formerly enslaved people demonstrated by seeking their own freedom.